Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant, and today I want to talk briefly about TTArtisan's sub-$200 autofocusing 32mm f2.8 lens in Nikon Z-mount. Bottom line, I'm pleased to see TTArtisan moving into autofocus lenses. They are an interesting young company, and this is their first ever, as far as I know, autofocusing lens. In fact, the autofocus is notable precisely because it wasn't notable. It simply worked well for Claudia's street work, and she was able to get lovely images with it on her Z7 II. Images like this. Claudia enjoyed its diminutive size and light weight, too, and was surprised by how well it did on first blush, reviewing the images on her rear screen while out in the field. But once we looked at the images more closely, back at home on a properly sized screen, and then looked even more closely at test images shot downstairs in the Bat studio, well, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Now, you can argue, and at one level I'd agree with you completely, that comparing a sub-$200 lens to a lens more than 10 times the price is completely unfair. On the other hand, that's exactly what I did because we didn't plunk down our own hard cash not to leverage every last bit of the Z7 II's image quality. And more actually than 10 times the price of the TTArtisan is how much Claudia's go-to lens, the only lens she's bought for her Z7 II, the Nikon Z20-40-70 2.8, costs. It is a perfect pairing with her Z7 II. And it wipes the floor with the little prime across every category from image quality to build quality to autofocus performance. Which is what one might expect. No harm, no foul. Put differently, if you're going to spend a chunk of dough on a camera, my advice is don't cheap out on the glass for it, unless you can find an extraordinary bargain. But in this case, I'd call both lenses, this TTArtisan Prime and that Nikon Z Zoom, you get what you pay for kind of glass. No extraordinary bargain here. Although it is interesting to note that the TTArtisan cleans up quite a bit by the time you get to f5.6, and then it holds its own against the 24-70 2.8 when the 24-70 2.8 is shot wide open. Do keep that in mind as you evaluate your priorities. I thought it might be more interesting to then compare the 32, if imperfectly, to another inexpensive prime, a not quite apples to apples, but it's what we had handy, Canon Nifty 50 Plastic Fantastic EF 51.8 Mark II, first introduced in 1990, mounted on our 33-megapixel Sony a7 IV via adapter, which was one heck of a bargain back then. Compared to the Canon, and allowing for differences in sensor resolution and autofocus performance from the bodies themselves, I'd say the TTArtisan still offers superior autofocus and sharpness as early as f3.5. But the flip side is that the 32 2.8 is marred by too much lateral chromatic aberration for my taste, interestingly enough something utterly absent from the 30-plus-year-old Canon. In fact, I think you could probably say the same thing when comparing it to Nikon's 10-year-old AFS Nikkor 51.8G, which can be had used, like new, for just about the same price as the TTArtisan. Although, right, you'd need an adapter. So, call the TTArtisan 32 f2.8 a sharper but more chromatic aberration challenged 2022 version of primes dating back a decade or three ago. Would I recommend it for a full-frame Nikon Z shooter looking for, say, a first prime lens? Would I recommend instead an older, used f-mount prime for the same price? In either case, probably not. My thinking is this. If you can spring for even Nikon's least expensive full-frame Z, their $1,300 Z5, then you probably can afford, or should save up until you can afford, Nikon's $630 Nikkor Z51.8S, or if a wide standard is truly what you're looking for, their $850 Z35 1.8S. Nikon's Z Prime lineup, the 1.8s, it's the best in the business dollar for dollar. I've had these two in hand and they are both spectacular. Either one really will show you what primes are all about, from image quality to shallow depth of field, and coax the most out of your camera. If you can't bring yourself to wait that long or spend that much, I understand. But then I'd suggest you take a close look at Nikon's more modestly priced $280 Z40 f2, maybe the Z28mm f2.8, although I confess I've not gone hands-on with either of them. I've only looked at their MTF charts, and yes, I know what the limitations are of comparing MTF charts across manufacturers, but I also understand how much lens design and performance have evolved just over the past half decade. And when a company with Nikon's DNA puts its mind to it, it can produce excellent lenses, blowing away designs of a decade ago at accessible prices. In this instance, you'll have to judge for yourself. With all of this said, if you don't mind chromatic aberration, because at least for stills it can be corrected relatively easily in post, although I should add that I didn't check for longitudinal CA, only lateral CA, because where there's the one, there's almost invariably the other. But actually, longitudinal CA is much harder to fix for stills, and both types of CA are nigh impossible to correct when shooting video. So, okay, maybe you don't mind because you shoot only in black and white, or if you don't crop the crap out of images or print them at Mongo sizes and view them at closer than normal distances, if you are okay with not exploring shallower depth of field, which I would regard actually as a mistake when going to your first prime, but hey, that's just me. Well, okay then. Grab the 32 2.8 and don't look back. There is goodness in small, light, and cheap, and fit for purpose. But yeah, I wouldn't. If you like what you've seen here today, please give a thumbs up, subscribe, join the conversation below, because this is an incredible audience. If you'd like a copy of our Streets of New York, the book, head over to www.3bmep.com/books. If you'd like to schedule a one-on-one video session with me for a portfolio review, explore or hone your artistic voice, select gear, and more, sign up at www.3bmep.com/booking. Finally, consider supporting our work by using our no-cost-to-you affiliate links down below, picking up some official Three Blind Men and an Elephant swag at 3bmep.threadless.com, sending coffee money via PayPal, or best of all, join us as a patron over at Patreon. However you choose to support us, as always, we thank you for it.